Have you noticed that being an Olympic football champion doesn't carry the same prestige as winning the FIFA World Cup? There's more than one reason why this is so, and almost none of them have anything to do with football. Instead, they're tied with things happening almost exclusively outside of the pitch. Money and influence have been a part of professional sports for quite some time, and football couldn't stay immune to them being the biggest game on the planet. The commercial aspect of football allowed it to become what it is today, but unfortunately, there are some negative things coming along with all of that. Many rules related to football in the Olympics do not exist in relation to other sports, so it's reasonable to ask the question, why? Hello football fans, and welcome to Top Corner TV. We're a new channel with the goal of bringing you only the best football content, so before we begin, hit that subscribe button and help us become better with every new video. As you probably know, the Olympic Games originate back from ancient Greece, and in addition to being a sports event, they also had a religious aspect. From a historical point of view, their beginning is not clearly defined, and the Greeks associated the Olympic Games with Zeus and Hercules, who were both examples of strength and power in the ancient world. According to legend, Hercules founded and established the tradition of holding the Olympic Games after he successfully completed his 12 legendary tasks. Fortunately, Hercules didn't invent football because, if he had, it probably would have included swords, shields, and maybe even animals like lions or bulls. To tell the truth, football is not the first thing that comes to mind when someone mentions the Olympic Games. The disciplines that are the trademark of this event are mostly related to athletics, running, jumping, swimming, and other sports that do not have much contact with the green surface. After all, when someone criticizes the achievements of football players, they mostly talk about the lack of world or European titles, the Champions League, individual awards like the Ballon d'Or, etc. No one ever said Zidane's or Ronaldo's careers are incomplete because they've never won the Olympics. This is supported by the fact that the Olympic Games are one of civilization's oldest sports events, and football has only been included on their schedule since 1900, when the Olympic Committee realized that this game would only grow in the future. Naturally, they wanted to make money from the upcoming world phenomenon, but they were prevented from doing so by FIFA and many other factors. You might think that FIFA and the Olympic Committee would work together to promote football for mutual benefit, but the situation is exactly the opposite. These two organizations have by no means managed to find a common language, despite the fact that they've existed simultaneously for decades, and, as it seems, nothing will change in the future. It's like they viewed each other as mortal enemies throughout history, and that's why there are so many rules today that prevent us from seeing the best football in the Olympics. However, it's not like they're the only reason why we don't get the premier talent competing at the Olympic football. Many practical challenges are also interfering with players' abilities to recover for the tournament, given the fact it's almost always intersecting with the Euro competition. So, the number one problem for clubs and players is scheduling. Seasons are quite long, and the players just need some time to heal up from injuries or just rest their bodies so that they go back to their peak form. It's impossible to do if you spend the entire summer competing against other top players. First, if your national team qualifies for Euro competition, that's an entire month of football, and the Olympics usually last between 2 to 3 weeks. If you add all that time up, you see why it's an impossible task for even the most well-conditioned players out there. Just take this summer as an example. Euro 2024 went on from the 14th of June to the 14th of July, and the Olympics started on the 26th of July. That's less than 2 weeks of rest between the events, so who in their right mind would think that won't leave consequences on one's muscles and tendons? Some may say the Olympics are a young man's game, and they'd be both literally and figuratively right. If you didn't know, there's a rule allowing only 3 players older than 23 on a single team, which means all the other guys must be under that limit if they want to compete at the Olympics. This might sound ridiculous, but there's actually a legit reason behind it. Unfortunately, that reason is exactly why football at the Olympics just isn't as good as the one played during the World Cup. This doesn't mean the Olympics have never featured football stars. Pirlo, Ronaldinho, Neymar, Luis Suarez, and even Ronaldo and Messi have played for their national teams. It's just that, despite that, the tournament doesn't carry the same weight as the World Cup. You see, the under-23 rule was intended to protect the players from progressive fatigue and at the same time promote the younger guys who couldn't get the opportunity in other national teams' competitions. However, there's also another, more negative backstory that actually shows you how dirty the sports business can be. The Olympics have a much older history than football, so normally, football became a part of it much later than the other disciplines. As the Olympics introduced football to their event, they didn't handle everything so great and created a weird rule that only amateur players could compete. This would go on for 30 years until FIFA decided that this rule was damaging the public image of the sport and wanted to parry the Olympics with a tournament of their own. They felt like the best players from different leagues didn't have the chance to showcase their skills on an international level, so they came up with an idea which we all know today as the World Cup. Of course, this was not the sole reason for it. They knew how much money would be generated around the first professional global football event, and that was only the beginning. The original one was played in 1930 in Uruguay, and after that, FIFA went a step further to prevent the players from participating in the 1932 Olympics. The reason behind it was they thought more people would watch the World Cup if there was no alternative to it. Luckily, Germany was the host of the 1936 Olympics and refused to organize them if football wasn't involved. If any other smaller country was in charge, the outcome might have been different, but Germany was at the peak of its economic and political influence, so both FIFA and the Olympic Committee couldn't say no. Later on, FIFA would realize that it didn't matter that the Olympics and the World Cup existed simultaneously. The difference in terms of quality was way too much in their favor, as the Olympics wouldn't go on to change their amateurs-only rule until 1984. By that time, the World Cup was light years ahead of the Olympics, and as you can see, they still haven't been able to catch up to this day. The best way to realize the impact of this is to look at the numbers. The total amount of money generated by the last World Cup is estimated to be around $7.5 billion, while the last Olympics held in Tokyo netted around $4.2 billion. That may also sound impressive because you just can't disregard $4 billion, but take into account how many sports were actually taking place during the event. If you went on to list all the sports by their money-generative powers, football at the Olympics would be incomparable to the World Cup. However, it's not all dark and gloomy for the Olympics. They may be ahead when it comes to football, but there are some other sports they're actually ahead of compared to organizations like FIBA. If you take a look at the USA's basketball national team, you'll see they didn't care much about the World Cup in the Philippines last year, sending their not most powerful roster. But losing in the semis against Germany made them worried about the Olympics, so they assembled one of the strongest squads since the Dream Team in 1992. The Olympics are a matter of pride for them when it comes to basketball, so it's no secret why they've been so dominant at it, sending their most talented players to defend their country's honor and basketball reputation. Out of 19 Olympics held so far, they've won gold 16 times, which is why they proudly boast around saying they're world champions when they win the NBA title. Maybe that's why they value the Olympics so much, because they see it as a way to establish their dominance over the world's basketball every 4 years. That's it for today, dear friends. We hope you've enjoyed this video. Let us know in the comments below what you think about the differences between the World Cup and the Olympics, and what rules would you change to make things better. Thank you for watching and sticking out with us until the end. Make sure you don't miss out on more football stories by hitting that subscribe button. See you in the next one.